Okay, guys, so let's take a look at Chapter 20, Lesson 3 and 4. So, more and more people are moving to the cities, and there's lots of reasons. It's jobs, it's for entertainment, multiple different reasons people are coming there. And the cities provide leisure, which is things you do for fun, and they provide places where people can buy stuff, retail areas, and they provide opportunities for work. So, all these things are reasons people are going to come to the city, but they got to be able to get around. And there's no public bus system, there's no cars yet. So, how do people get around the cities? The main way they get around are on these things called trolleys, which is basically a big wagon pulled by horses. They could carry 10 to 15 people, but they have some negative consequences. So, if you think about it, if you have all of the streets and roads being full of wagons pulled by horses, there's going to be a lot of droppings that accumulate on the road, and someone's got to clean that up. Transportation improved when Thomas Edison got involved. He created an electric engine for these streetcars. So how that changed things, now you have no more horses doing their business on the street. The electric streetcars are faster, and they can pull more people, up to about 45 people. So they're cleaner and faster than the previous method. The streetcar routes affect the way the city grows. Since everybody is walking till they get on these streetcars, they're going to want to live close to where the streetcar routes are. Just like how you might want to live close to a bus stop today if you got to ride the bus to work every day, people wanted to live close to these streetcar routes. So, before this time, if you needed something, most people had to make it for themselves. But now you got stores popping up, and these stores are growing and changing from just small little stores into these big giant department stores. So at first, each store specialized in, one or two products. They could be like a shirt store or a shoe store, but probably not both. Then what happened is they started getting these things called department stores. In a department store is basically taking these smaller stores with different businesses and combining them into one location. So if you think about, like, if you go into the mall today, you have multiple different stores that you can go to, or even if you go into like Walmart, there's different sections within the store. There's clothes, there's food, there's cleaning products. So they have multiple different departments or, areas of focus inside one building. This is really popular because it makes it so people have to take less stops on their shopping trips. A guy named F.W. Woolworth became incredibly rich, and I believe he owned maybe the tallest building in the world at the time. But he set up his department store that sold everything for a fixed price. So pretty much everything in the store was either going to be 5 or 10 cents. This store became very popular because it became easy for people to budget and figure out how much they were going to spend. They could figure out their bill pretty quick with 5 and 10 cents. It's kind of similar to how, like, if you go to the Dollar Tree, everything is $1. You know how much everything is before you even get in the door. F.W. Woolworth was similar. You knew how much almost everything was going to be as soon as you walked through the door. So what did people do for fun in the cities? There's multiple different leisure activities. There's art centers, there's museums, there's opera houses where you can listen to music. So lots of different things people can do. But if you're not so interested in the arts, more interested in spectator events, sports also started to become popular. And baseball became one of the first spectator sports. And a spectator is someone who watches. So baseball became a professional sport where people could go and watch other athletes, perform and play. The problem with baseball is you can only play it when the weather is good. So around 1891, James Naismith of Springfield, Massachusetts, created a new sport, basketball. And basketball is different than the basketball we know today. We have a standard court with a standard size hoop. But back when basketball first started, they would play in whatever kind of building they could rent. Sometimes they would play in like a skating rink, so the court would be round that day, and they would bring hoops with them. So it wasn't like one standard court when it first started. So more and more people move into the cities for these opportunities, trying to find work, trying to find things to keep themselves entertained. But with more people moving to the cities, they're going to become very, very crowded. They were not ready for the population to shoot up like it did. So these cities had grown rapidly, and their sanitation departments had not grown with them. So since more and more people are moving to the cities, they need places to stay. And people in these big cities, these landlords, built these buildings called tenements. And a tenement is basically the cheapest apartment building possible. You'd have these big buildings with 30 or 40 apartments in them. Most of them were only one room for the entire apartment. So that one room is going to be your living room, kitchen, and your bedroom. And you probably don't have a bathroom in your apartment. The bathroom is most likely some buckets in the basement. So these tenements were not nice places to live. They were incredibly crowded. They were, not healthy. No windows, no ventilation. Not a good place to be, but it was the only option for many people. And these tenements were usually built in the areas of the cities called slums. And the slums are basically just saying a poor part of town where people are struggling. So in 1870, a guy named Jacob Riis, he was telling people how bad these tenements were, how bad the slums were, but people didn't really believe him. So what he started doing is he wrote a book called How the Other Half Lives, and it was about these immigrants and their families and the struggles of living in these tenements and the slums. People still really didn't believe him, so what he started doing was going and taking pictures of these families and their struggles. And he would show these pictures through a projector at these events he would hold. And when people actually saw the struggle of the families, that's when they really started to change their mind about these tenements in the slums. So a lot of these cities were not prepared for the huge jump in population. These tenement buildings weren't safe. More and more people then move into the cities. Because before this time, most people were self-sufficient. They took care of themselves. They took care of all their own needs. But now, the government's got to get involved because the city's population is growing way too quick. So they're realizing the government needs to do something to step up and help these communities. The problem is, many people don't know how to deal with these immigrants coming in. They don't speak the same language as them. A lot of people are prejudiced and they discriminate against these immigrants. A lot of them believe that people living in the slums are poor, and they're poor because they're lazy, which is not true. Many of these families came here with the false hope that they were going to get some nice, countryside property and set up a farm, but all that land was sold and gone. They came here wanting to work, but it was difficult for them to find jobs that paid well. So there were some organizations that were set up to help these people, different kind of charity and community groups, like the Salvation Army and the YMCA and the YWCA. The YMCA actually used to have rooms people could rent where they could go and they could stay there, until they could find a permanent place to live. Okay, guys. So, the shorter lesson, I need you to go into Google Classroom and knock out the worksheet for Chapter 20, Lesson 3 and 4.